Hi, thank you so much for listening today. This is the third artist in our Cultural Evolutionary series. Before we get to the episode, I want to recommend a show that's been helpful to me. It's called What the Finance, hosted by Cheyenne and Rachel. This show is full of laid-back, super helpful conversations about personal finances and how they really work in our current capitalist system. Cheyenne and Rachel take on some of the myths about personal finances in our society. One topic they cover that I liked is why layoffs are actually bad business policy. I'll include their trailer at the end of the show. Look for them wherever you listen to podcasts. Do you want to change the world? So do I. On this show, we meet artists whose work is doing just that. Welcome to Art Heals All Wounds. I'm your host, Pam Uzel. This past March 31st, 2023, was proclaimed Cesar Chavez Day in California by Governor Gavin Newsom. It was in a barrio known as Sal Si Puedes, translated to Escape If You Can, in Eastside San Jose that Cesar Chavez began organizing throughout the 1950s for Latino and farm workers' rights. Chavez and Dolores Huerta went on to co-found the National Farm Workers Association in 1962. The National Farm Workers Association later became known as United Farm Workers. So, from Sal Si Puedes, we now have Si Se Puede. Eastside San Jose is also home to the largest Vietnamese community outside of Vietnam. Imagine growing up in such a place and seeing all of the ways that culture can move across boundaries and borders, and always looking for common threads, like the various beats and themes in different kinds of music. My guest today, the third artist in our Cultural Evolutionary series, is professional musician Mathew Gabriel Gonzales. Mathew records and performs cumbia under the name of Philthy Dronez. That's filthy with a PH and drones with a Z. The cumbia he grew up with, though, is just the starting point for Mathew. He's looking for all the ways that cumbia intersects and blends with hip-hop, blues, funk, and even other forms of rock music to create what he calls West Coast Cumbia. Thanks for listening today. This is the third artist in the Cultural Evolutionaries mini-series of Art Heals All Wounds. If you're enjoying what you're hearing in this podcast, please follow it on any of your favorite listening apps and share it with a friend that you think would enjoy it too. My guest today, Mathew Gabriel Gonzales, who performs and records music as Philthy Dronez, has been a professional musician and music producer for 22 years. Mathew's family was full of musicians, but for most of his childhood, he wanted to play baseball. But an important person in his life set him on the path to immersing himself in music. Growing up in Eastside San Jose, he remembers the food, the art, and the festivals. While celebrating Mexican Independence Day, you might stop to enjoy amazing pho at your favorite Vietnamese place in the area. As Mathew performs and experiments with the blend of more musical traditions to create his West Coast Cumbia, the pleasures he grew up with, great food, music, and celebrating with your people, continue to inform his work and his life. Hi, Mathew. Thank you so much for being on Art Heals All Wounds. Can you start by telling us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, Pam, thank you for having me. My name is Mathew Gabriel Gonzales. I grew up on the east side of San Jose, California, and I'm a professional musician, music producer. I started off playing in a band that was considered rock en español, like a Spanish rock. So I started playing in that, and then I continued my journey. I was in a reggae band. I was in like a soul rock band for a while, and then I found this cumbia stuff like 10 to 12 years ago, and I started producing it. I actually started producing it because of reggae, because reggae is very similar to cumbia music. And one day I remember I was just listening to a reggae song, and I was like, I should try doing a cumbia song, because a lot of my friends around the time were doing it. We're doing like producing cumbia with like hip hop and making cool correlations with the two. So I started, and I mixed. I remember I mixed a Fito Olivares song with the Cypress Hill song, and then I threw the Beatles in there too. I remember the whole hip hop cumbia thing that I figured out that night, where I was like, wow, this is crazy. It's like the same types of music, but it's totally from two completely different worlds. So I started doing that, and I caught the bug, and then I started learning about cumbia, like learning more about like the percussions and the keyboards and then I started learning how to play accordion, and I've been playing accordion for 5 years, and that's pretty much what I do and who I am.
It just seems to me that you are performing all over the place. Didn't you just perform at Gavin Newsom's inauguration not too long ago?
Yeah, yes, I did. That was really, really fun. It's kind of crazy though. There was all the Secret Service around. It was really crazy. It was like a weird event. I was like, whoa, dude, I don't want to get
It's really great that he did have you guys perform. So I'm wondering if you could tell me about Eastside, since I only know it from reading, research online, but I don't really know it.
Well, see, most people know Eastside. It's always had like a bad rap, because it's always been a little rowdy place back in the day, right? And because I grew up there, so I know what it is. But honestly, like, even though with that element in the picture, like the lowrider culture came out of Eastside, California, Eastside San Jose, California. And it did. And Ali wants to say that it came from over there, but no, it did not. It came from Eastside San Jose, California. For me, one of the main things is the lowrider stuff, because it's like, even in Japan right now, like it's going crazy, like lowrider culture.
Wow.
Like there's guys like Japanese guys in the garb, like the glasses, the beanies, the big shirts, all that stuff. Like the lowriders, obviously they have these really cool lowriders that they got over there, and they're really pushing, like they're kind of like maybe at the forefront of the lowrider culture right now in Japan.
That's
like
amazing.
It's really cool. It's really cool. But it's cool to see how that stuff crosses borders, and how it's not like it's not just one ethnicity doing this. It's kind of universal in a way, and that's what music is for me. That's what music is for me. Like that's what I love about music, is that there is no like language, there is no border,
Right.
There's nothing like that.
Right.
It's universal. It's like, it's beautiful.
There are a couple things when you're talking about that which I wanted to ask you about. One is that when I was reading about Eastside, this article I read said that it used to be known as Sal Si Puedes.
Yeah. Okay, so then there's and I could go on forever about this.
So Sal Si Puedes is get out while you can, or get out if you can. Is that it?
It means a lot of things, but it pretty much probably was like because of the gang, because of the gang influence, or the gang element in Eastside. Because it was bad for a while in the 80s. When I was growing up, it was bad, but at the same time, it was really beautiful at the same time, because the food, you can find some of the best food. The best pho is in Eastside San Jose, California. It's not just Latino, it's very much Vietnamese too. it was cool how the two cultures interact, you know.
Well, tell me more about what was beautiful about it.
It's the food, the art, the little festivals that would happen, like even with like Vietnamese New Year or like Cinco de Mayo, Mexican Independence Day.
Well, one thing I'm wondering about is how did you get started playing music?
I remember when I was young, when I was really young, like 10 maybe. My mom's mom, my grandma B, would always be. She was an amazing singer, by the way. So she would always try to get me, wanting to get me to play the guitar, you know, because everyone in my family kind of played. Her dad played. My great grandpa, he played the accordion, the guitar, and the harmonica, I believe, and a bunch of other instruments too. But she, at a young age, she was always like, oh, you got to play the guitar, this and that, So I remember at age 10, they brought me a guitar from Mexico, and it wasn't a crazy guitar. It was like a little learning, like a guitar to learn on. And yeah, and I remember I just tried to, I was messing around. I was a kid, and I was like, I don't want to do this, because again, I was playing baseball at the time, so I wanted to play baseball. So then a couple years passed. I want to say 4 years passed. I was 14 now at the time, and she was passing away. She was like on her deathbed, and she looks at me and she's like, "Hey," she's like, "I want you to learn how to play guitar," And it wasn't maybe like a couple weeks after that she passed. She passed in April of '99, and in the summer of '99, I told my mom to get me to restring this guitar for me that my dad had. Like, it was just collecting dust. So she got it restrung for me. And at the time, there were computers now. And I just went on like a website that showed you chords, it showed you how to play and it showed you the graphics and everything. So I went on there. I think it was called like udo.com or something. I don't even know if it still exists. So I started learning the guitar on there, and I learned all the chords. I learned like 3 or 4 chords. And yeah, and I just ran wild with it. I got a keyboard. I had like a keyboard that we had here at the house when we moved in. There was just a random keyboard that just left here. And that really helped me out a lot, like learning keyboards. It was like a cheap Casio keyboard. So that's how I really started getting into music. And I just immersed myself, and I just kind of taught myself everything. From then on, I learned how to record and how to play keyboards, play bass, program drums. Yeah, and then a couple years after that, I picked up the accordion maybe in like 5 years ago, 5-6 years ago, because I started playing the cumbia stuff. So I was like, if I'm gonna be playing the cumbia stuff, I gotta learn how to play accordion, because I don't want to hire anybody. So.
I love accordion. You're really good too. I can't believe you've only been playing it a couple of years.
Yeah, I really immersed myself in it.
Yeah. So why cumbia? What is it about cumbia that attracts you?
I grew up with it my whole life. Like, okay, talking about Eastside San Jose again, like anywhere you went, Eastside, pretty much you hear that cumbia rocking, and to this day you still hear it rocking. You go into a restaurant, whatever, in the back, you always hear cumbia going,
Right.
And that's what one of my fondest memories too from Eastside, which is the music. The music is really big here.
Right.
And I just started playing it. I noticed this correlation with like hip hop and with cumbia. It's cool because both types of music come from a place of like oppression, Like cumbia does the same thing, and hip hop the same thing, blues music the same thing, So that's why I kind of like playing it too, because it does come from a dark place, but it's so beautiful, like hip hop is beautiful.
Well, can you explain a little bit more about the roots of cumbia?
So it comes from Colombia. It's kind of interesting how it comes from the slaves from Colombia, and like how blues music comes from America. It started with hymns, it was just words, and then it started with a drum. Then they've got the accordion in there somehow. Then they got in, the bass and all that stuff. But it pretty much originated from like the slaves of Colombia. It just was vocals, just like here, like with hymns from like blues. That's how it kind of originated, and then it eventually just became this music for celebrations, and which is pretty cool. Cumbia eventually made its way over to Mexico. And in Mexico City, it's huge. And I think that's, for me, that's like the center of like cumbia in Mexico right now. And I think throughout the world, to be honest. And I think it's my opinion, but whatever. But, there's a big scene in Monterrey as well, in Puebla, Mexico, and in all parts, each have their own like thing, like in the tropical parts, it's more like you feel it's like more tropical. There's marimba, there's a bunch of stuff in there. In Mexico City, it's where they play the accordion, and it sounds very from the streets, which I like. It's kind of like where, the cumbia that I grew up on.
So nothing in the world stays static. So where do you see yourself going with cumbia? You did talk a little bit more about the relationship with blues and with hip hop. And I'm just curious to know, where do you see yourself going as a professional musician?
I've been doing this kind of music for a long time, and I've been like kind of honing in on this sound. And where I'm from, I grew up on West Coast hip hop, on like gangsta rap and all that stuff. So I've been making this cumbia stuff, but like I said, there's this like correlation between the two, right? And I've been kind of mixing those two worlds, like the sounds from West Coast hip hop, putting them into cumbia, and it's like a really cool thing. And I'm calling it West Coast Cumbia. I'm kind of excited to see where it's gonna go. I'm gonna be releasing an album called West Coast Cumbia Volume 1. And that should be coming out within the next couple months, 2 months, hopefully. I'm kind of going with the sound, and it's cumbia mixed with West Coast hip hop elements, but also like West Coast funk, like Tower Power, like Malo, Santana, that kind of stuff. I use a lot of guitar in my stuff. And, I'm kind of taking all these elements, just crushing them together with cumbia, and I'm making the sound that's catching on with people. So, and people are starting to recognize it, and it's cool, like people are starting to recognize it across the world. So that's cool.
Right.
I also have 2 vinyls actually on a local label from Oakland called Discos Mas. You can check them out on discosmas.com if you want. I have 2 vinyls out, 45s. And actually it's cool because I just got tagged. One of my good friends, her name is Juana. She's from Australia. She's a Colombian lady living in Australia. And she's rocking that cumbia stuff over there in Sydney. So it's really cool to see, it's really cool to see people spinning my stuff in London and Paris and Germany, So I plan on actually going there this summer, either this summer or this September, to go over there to London, Paris, and Germany. And
oh, cool.
Well, London, Paris, and Berlin. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it just reminds me of what we were talking about earlier with the lowrider culture, that it started in Eastside in San Jose, and now it's spreading everywhere, and that, it's different cultures are getting their own take on it.
Yeah, and it's really cool because they're putting like their own traditional instruments with the cumbia stuff.
Wow.
And that's really freaking cool to see, man. It's really cool because it's just like something that, kind of like what I'm doing with this West Coast stuff, like I'm taking my influences and my the stuff that I grew up with, and I'm putting it into this stuff, into this cumbia stuff, and now they're doing the same, and who knows what else anybody else is doing with it. So I'm really excited to see what's to come with all this cumbia stuff. But I know what I'm doing. My style is called West Coast Cumbia, and I should have a record done soon with it. So I'm actually in the process of recording it as we speak.
That's good. Well, I have one more question for you, Mathew. You have on your hands, on your knuckles, this tattoo called Wepa Life, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Can you? Yeah. What is that?
Wepa Life. So in cumbia, I don't know if you hear like different songs, but they always usually say like, okay, how like in hip hop they say like throw your hands in the air, like, or hey, like I don't know, they'll say like a hype word, So in cumbia, it's like the same thing. They'll say wepa, they'll say like, they'll just scream it, throughout, like in the beginning of a song, either in the beginning of a song or like when music starts in one of the songs, they'll scream it. They'll be like wepa, So, that's kind of like that, what that word means. It's like a hype word. And I kind of took it and I just said wepa life. You know how Tupac had like thug life? So I have wepa life, And
what does that mean to you, though, to say that you have Wepa Life? Like it sounds like a philosophy, and I'd love to hear more like what that means.
It's more like, it's more like what you make it, Wepa Life. Like, let me think of a good example. Like you go to, I don't know, you go to your favorite restaurant, you eat your favorite food, and you're so full and you're so happy, and like that's Wepa life to me, you know. You know, you just say it, and you know, like for me, you know, I go out and I have a good show, you know, and I get back to my hotel and I'm a happy man. That's Wepa life, you know.
Yeah.
It could be whatever you make it, to be honest. I don't even know if it's a philosophy. And now you say that, I'm like, that's kind of, we can get philosophical with it. But
well, let me rephrase that. It's sort of like, I don't mean like a philosophy that you talk about for 4 hours, but like it's more like maybe
it's a way of life.
It's a way of life. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. For me it is. For me it is. And when I say that, I mean like to just have a good time and to be positive and to live your life in a way that where you want it, where you want to live it, and where you do things that you love. You know, maybe that's what it means. I don't know.
It's very cool. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like it.
I just got this tattoo. It hurt really bad, BTW. I didn't know what I was thinking. I thought, oh, it's gonna be quick, you know.
It was not very Wepa.
God, it was not very Wepa life. No. But I love it. I love it.
It is really cool. I like it too. So before we close here, can you share where people can find your music and just find out more about you and follow what you're doing?
You can follow me on Spotify. You can find me on, what is that, the Google Store, Google Play, SoundCloud.com. You can find me on Apple Music. And also you can find my vinyls at discosmas.com. And yeah, and you can just follow me on Instagram, Philthy Dronez, Facebook, all that good stuff. TikTok, because it's the big thing right now with all the kids, TikTok.
Right.
And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you coming on, and I am really looking forward to hearing this record, this album that you have coming out. So I'm going to be looking for that.
Yeah, I'll send you some of the tracks before they come out, so you can get a sneak peek.
That is amazing. That would be an amazing gift. You're listening to Art Heals All Wounds. Thank you to Mathew Gabriel Gonzales for sharing the story behind West Coast Cumbia and a bit of the culture he experienced growing up in Eastside San Jose. Follow him on Instagram and Facebook under his performing name, Philthy Dronez, and check out a show. He performs in San Jose, but he's also been to all parts of the country as well. So if you're lucky, he may be performing somewhere near you in the future. And thanks to all of you for listening. It means a lot that you're celebrating the work of artists with me. Let me know what you think by reaching out to me through my website, arthealsallwoundspodcast.com. The music you've heard in this podcast is by Quetzal and Lobo Loco. You also heard great music from Philthy Dronez in this episode. This podcast was edited by Eva Hristova. As always, this show was recorded using Squadcast FM. Art Heals All Wounds comes to you from Oakland, California, on unceded territory of the Choqueño Ohlone people.
Do you feel like there's not enough personal in your personal finance world?
Or maybe you know there's absolutely no way you can bootstrap yourself out of a bad system designed to see you fail.
If either one of these applies to you, then you need to listen to What the Finance. What the Finance is independently produced by me, Cheyenne.
And me, Rachel. You can subscribe to What the Finance anywhere feisty podcasts are found.